What are your final thoughts, Paul, about preparing for your big race?
You're very privileged to actually even have the capacity to be able to do that. So remember to be grateful for the fact that you have that ability to do what you're doing. And in doing that, you should be welcoming the fact that that's maybe a little bit uncomfortable, because it's still a blessing to be able to be uncomfortable out there.
Welcome to the Athlete's Compass podcast. Each week, renowned sports scientist and founder of Athletica AI, Dr. Paul Larson, athlete, coach, and sports scientist Marjaana Rakai, and coach and cyclist Paul Warloski discuss training, racing, and improving your health and fitness. Get ready for your journey to peak performance. Hello and welcome to the Athlete's Compass podcast, where we navigate training, fitness, and health for everyday athletes. Today, we're diving into race week preparation, one of the most critical yet overlooked aspects of race performance. What should you be doing in the final days before a race? Should you completely rest? Should you train? How do you taper properly without feeling flat on race day? And what about nutrition, hydration, sleep, and managing nerves? What's fact about preparing for your A or B level race, and what's fiction? So we're going to start with some mental preparation. We had some questions about this in our last ambassador meeting and during our forum. What kind of mental strategies or visualization techniques can help on race day?
Yeah, positive self-talk. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the negative self-talk is so loud.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and why is that happening too, right? Like in the taper time, like there's a lot more time you've got on your hand too, right? And like all of a sudden you're not training as much anymore. So it's like you start to have these doubts, right? It's because you got all this, all this time on your hands, and
Did you do
so it's very
enough?
natural to sort of feel that way.
I think part of it is because we're constantly scanning our bodies. Like, do I have any niggles? If
Yeah.
you find a little tight spot, then it's like it like the world, the world is ending. Oh my God, I can't race. This is something really bad. It's just like if you like listen to yourself, like on the last 2 weeks, there are so many different crazy ideas, and you're scanning your body. Am I like getting ready? But then something is hurting. Oh, my hip is hurting. My knee's hurting. Oh, what does this mean? Am I gonna get sick? Oh yeah, a little tickle in the throat. Then it's like, oh,
Hey,
damn
MJ, I
it.
think you're supposed to be helping people, not making them more nervous here.
I'm just sharing my experience.
No, I know I mean, I'm sure the listener can relate, right? So it's good. Hopefully there's some empathy that we're all sharing right now, because we've been there. We know what you are going through if you're listening to this podcast and trying to get inspiration. But what's one of the key things, MJ, that I always tell you when I'm coaching you? I say to you, MJ, the race now shifts. Like, you've nailed your sessions, right? You've done this all with your muscles, but now the most important muscle shifts to the one between your two ears. That's right. Where do you start with everything to do with the mind, MJ?
Um, Meditation, staying in the moment, telling myself that I've done everything that I could have done, and that any niggles or pains are not going to be there on the race day because of various hormones. You're getting ready, and I think part of it is like your mind is getting ready for doing something really hard, and part of the race week nerves and the niggles are because you're getting prepared in your mind. But no, when you wake up in a race day, you won't feel anything because this adrenaline's going and all kinds of hormones that are making you feel good and ready for battle.
Paul, what do you do for your athletes and for yourself as well in the mental component? Like, what do you
Yeah, there's
as a
usually
coach and as an athlete, what's your whole perspective on this?
I think there's three things that we really focus on. Is one is visualization, and especially for the really big races, visualizing. Um, for longer gravel races that we do, or longer, triathlon kind of things, what can go wrong, and then visualize yourself, fixing those, so that you're mentally ready for all the challenges. We also do a lot of breath work, and do box breathing, for example, where you're breathing in for 2 or 3, and then holding, and then exhaling for 3, and then holding that, and so you're stimulating your vagus nerve, you're calming yourself down. Just follow the plan, and like you've said before, the hay is in the barn. You're okay. You're going to be okay. You've done the work already, and now it's time to go have some fun.
I think one of the key things that we do need to remind ourselves, and this is the part really that MJ kind of alluded to, that's so difficult, is that the work, the barn is in the hay is in the barn, and it's like it's all done, and you can't really do too much anymore. Like this is why we did all the build phases, and the taper phases is about relieving stress more than anything, right? So you gotta let that go, and you've got to be complacent with allowing freshness to return, and that's harder. That's for many of us. That's easier said than done. And but you have to let it happen because you want to be fresh, and that's the whole point of the taper, right? So yeah, and I completely agree with the visualization factor too, right? So you've prepared for this, let's call it an A race, right? It's been a long build up, and it's been kind of your dream. You've done pieces of the work all along all along the journey, because that's what Athletica does, right? Like the training plan actually prepares you for pieces of the activity that you're going to be doing. So there's studies that have actually been shown that, the and there's many a story where there's this Olympian. I think Silken Laumann was one of these. Was a rower actually in Canada, famous rower, and she's like one of the most famous Canadian athletes. And the story with Silken, I forget which Olympics it was. It might have been Seoul, but she was rowing in Victoria at the High Performance Center there, and she was the shoe-in for the win, and she was going to, she did multi world champion, and but she had a massive accident where a boat rammed her in the side, and it tore right through her quadricep. So you can imagine the pointy end of that boat actually tearing the quadricep right off, right? So she has surgery. She's like 4 months out from the Seoul Olympics, right? Like you completely, most people would just completely write her off. So for the most part, she's sort of sitting bedridden, right? But what does she do? Of course, she said, "No way, I'm not done with this." And throughout that whole time, she is mentally going through in her mind that race, and she's rehearsing it in her mind how she's going to perform, even though she's not performing. But she kept the whole mental rehearsal, and like she was training the whole time in place. And she's the epitome of this this concept where you want to visualize what you're about to do, and it's that whole mind over matter thing. And she proved it. And the story is she was still able to, I believe, achieve a bronze medal when you would think that she would not even be able to kind of come back from that. So yeah, it's just the mind is so powerful. So continue to visualize how you're going to perform on that day, what pace you're going to perform on that day, how that feels, the fact that you're not going to overpace. All these important things that we know are going to lead you to success on that day.
I think visualization is so important, but you can overdo it. So a lot of time I see athletes who are a tad little tense, especially in a long event. Like you can wear yourself out before the race day by just not visualization or not calming yourself down, not doing your breathing or not just staying in the moment, and then just stressing out, just like being so hyped up and tight and nervous.
Yeah, and it'll probably relate to the person's personality too, right? Like however you can kind of get away from it at some point in time is also probably good too, right? Like, so if you're an extrovert, you might want to, have a good chat with your extrovert friends, right? And get your mind off the task at hand. But for introverts, where you're internalizing many things, you may want more of the meditation route.
What kind of last minute mistakes do athletes make with gear and logistics? How can athletes plan travel and meals and pre-race routines to minimize stress? I mean, MJ, you've flown across the country to do your Ironman worlds across the world, rather. What went into that whole process?
First of all, clean bike is a fast bike. Get your bike nice and clean and fast. And flying across the world is fun, but it is stressful. So allow a couple of more days than you think to have time to figure things out and get a couple of training things done. But yeah, I really enjoy traveling for a race. It's fun. First time you have some nerves, like you don't know exactly what you're doing yet. But I find like the more I've done big races, it gets easier and I can relax a little bit more. Like, okay, I got that. But there is eventually some things that you forget when you're not like super sharp and mentally like focused. So it depends on your kind of preparation personality, I guess. But writing packing list is a good practice.
Are there mistakes that either you have made or your athletes have made? What are some typical last minute mistakes? I know one is, cyclists changing major parts of their gear, like, putting new wheels on or getting a bike fit or something, like the day before. And that's like a recipe for disaster. You just want to bring it to the shop and making sure it's all working perfectly and then going on from there.
Yeah. For me, it was like doing something brand new on race day. So yeah, these are the things that have been really bad ideas. So for example, like the latest and greatest new supplement, and you're going to give this latest and greatest new supplement a kick on a key race day, and that's not a good idea. So make sure you've tried every single thing you possibly can in your training, right? Like during your key sets. In the context of, in almost every single Athletica plan, there will be like a key set that's sort of a preparatory phase. It's usually in build weeks 1 through 3 on the weekends, right? There's almost an opportunity there to trial your race nutrition. So, and you should do that, right? And again, so nothing is kind of new. But those are my big mistakes. Is like, and kind of like Paul alluded to, right? Like you're trying a new piece of equipment, right? Like a new disc wheel or whatever, right? And you're just going to try it for the first time on race day. Those never, you might be lucky, but it's like you could also be very unlucky too, right? Like these are sorts of things you should be trying in those key sets. So from nutrition to equipment, everything should be trialed. Actually, I just had a friend who's he's doing a half marathon. Hasn't done one in a long time, but he's done an Athletica build. It's going really well, but same sort of thing. So he's purchased one of the new Nike Vaporfly, carbon shoes, right? Like, but in his key set, he trialed it, and he's blown away. He can't believe his stride length, how much it's increased his stride length. But he's already tried the shoes, and he's not going to train in them now. But like he's done that set, and now he's putting those aside, and he's ready and prepared for race day with those shoes. Classic example. But he hasn't put those on day one in the race. So I'll shut up.
It's okay. MJ, what about you?
My first Ironman, I was super hyped up, visualized, planned everything, everything that could go wrong, I had a plan what I would do. And then my first Ironman was in Norway, so it was emotionally very, very important to me. And so first of all, I cried because they play the Norwegian national song, so I'm just like even more emotional and like ready to get this day started. So I started way too fast. And I got like 400 meters in, and I'm like, why can't I breathe? I can't breathe. I'm starting to panic. And then I'm like looking at my watch, and I was like, okay, I went out way too fast. So I had to like calm myself, stop and calm myself. And yeah, so I realized I realized at that moment that next race I will be in a calm mental state before I get into water. Another mistake. Well, I wouldn't say mistake because it went well, but I got a new bike 3 weeks before Ironman Finland, and everybody was saying you can't ride that. You can't ride that because your body hasn't, it's not used to riding that bike. But it felt so good that I went for it anyways, and it went well. But yeah, I would say probably most people pace themselves wrong. Like they start way too fast, like on a long, long day, like Ironman. I see it all the time, way too fast,
Yeah,
and
me
then they
too.
bonk.
And myself personally, that's what I would always do as well. So yeah, it was my biggest mistake and biggest learning. And when I finally was able to correct the bike, or yeah, the pacing ultimately in the earlier on, then my good times finally came, which was
Hmm.
great. But it's difficult when you have this capacity, right? Like you can smack it down, and you can race a full Ironman and start out at your 70.3 pace, but you'll be
It's not going to go
walking.
well.
No, you're going to be walking by the end. Unfortunately, that's just physiology.
So what happened? I want to double tap that because what happened? What did you tell yourself? Like, what was the turning point?
Well, I was having an ego issue ultimately, and because I had some level of ability over the shorter distance, but probably at that point in time I didn't really have the knowledge of really how to train for longer distances. So I would
Mhm.
just I would race Ironmans at Olympic distance or 70.3 pace to begin, and then I'd be walking later on, right? But yeah, so I had to grasp some ego issues and
Mhm.
get things in check, and train more specifically like you can now in Athletica. It
Yeah.
took a while though.
Nice.
So I think it. Remember when we interviewed Matt Fitzgerald? He was saying that there's differences between men and females how they pace because men are more risk takers and women are risk averse. And if you look at the ultra distance racing these days, women are closing the gap, right?
Big
We're
time.
we're
Even winning.
we're yeah, even winning, and that's probably, or some of the factors could be that we're pacing ourselves better
Hmm.
without taking too many risks.
Hmm. Yep.
Um,
Yeah, no, I think that's super cool. It's a personality type thing. It's a gender thing. Yeah, I love that, and I love that the gap is closing, if not even, women going better in certain, Deca Ironmans and these sorts of things. It's remarkable, and super cool to see. We should do a whole
mhm.
podcast on that one day. I've got
Yeah,
yeah. Well, we get some of the ultra ladies that are winning on that.
yeah, that would be super cool.
All right, let's talk about sleep. Um, Obviously, sleep is very critical leading up to the race. What's the best way of making sure that you can get good sleep when you're already nervous and uptight?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a tough one. So to be clear, don't worry about the night before, right? You're probably not
Yeah.
going to have the greatest sleep. And I know I've had many a Ironman under the belt without hardly any sleep at all, but it doesn't matter. And I think most people realize that. But if you're unaware, don't worry too much about the night before, right? Don't panic or freak out if you've only gotten a couple hours. It's just very common, and for various reasons, right? Whether you're just anxious and thinking about the race, or it's a short sleep anyways because you've got to be up at 3 to get to the start, which often happens too, right? So keep that in mind. But then prior to that, you should be trying to be in a regular circadian rhythm. We know that that's best, right? So you're aiming sort of for your 8 hours plus or minus an hour a night, in sort of the 5 to 6 days kind of prior. That's going to put you in the best sort of recovery pattern. That can be difficult, of course, if you're traveling the world and you're doing something that just might not happen, and that's okay too. So there's you're going to do the best you can at the end of the day, and I wouldn't. You can sleep sort of afterwards. Do your best to sleep when you can, I think would be my advice. And whatever you kind of need to do to sort of get through, but most importantly, kind of try to be calm. Get your eyes in daylight, because that is the key factor. Remember, that's going to keep that circadian rhythm sort of going.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about lack of sleep, especially if you're traveling. It's just not gonna happen. Sometimes, you change time zones, like 8 time zones. It's not gonna happen. You're gonna be up at night and then want to sleep during the day. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much of jet lag. You'll
So
be
when you did
ready on the
Nice,
race day.
how much sleep did you have in the days prior?
Not much. We traveled Tuesday. We're there Wednesday morning. Did not sleep the first night. Maybe a couple of hours. Yeah, there was not much sleep, and it was fine. And then after the race, you're so pumped that you don't feel tired at all. So
Can we bank sleep? If the night couple 3-4 nights ahead of time get 9 hours of sleep or get more? Is that something that's possible?
That's a good question. I mean, I would think you can to some degree. Like you can, you certainly can, refill your, your sleep debt, or and recharge that sleep debt problem. And but keep in mind, it's a tough one. Like when you are like you're only going to sleep when you're tired, right? Like you're only going to sleep when you are in sleep debt. And then so that's the thing, is if you're napping during the day because you've traveled, eight time zones, then you're not going to sleep too well during the night, right? So it's a fine line between when you decide to sleep. Ideally you want the sleep before you go and perform, right? But that requires a lot of time, right? Like that probably requires you to arrive like 10 days before the event to kind of get in that rhythm, and that just might not be practically possible, right? So a lot of depends on these sorts of things, but it can be done many different ways, and many ways have been successful. So yeah, get the sleep if you can, but if you can't, don't sweat it.
All right, training volume and intensity. How should training volume and intensity be adjusted in race week?
Yeah, definitely. Like volume is reduced, intensity is maintained. That's the general principle. So you want to you've done all the work, you've built all the engine, and you're just sharpening at that point in time. You're just like kind of keeping things crisp, turning things over. But that's the big thing that the big stress that's kind of removed tends to be the training volume. But be careful, don't overdo it on the intensity. But just kind of keep some a little bit of intensity up there, just to remind the body what it needs to do. Keep sharpening, and then when it's time to perform, then there's just you tend to be able to kind of lift. You've done all the aerobic, volume adaptations. They're all in the bank. Hay's in the barn, like you say, Paul. And then but the intensity just kind of keeps that upper sympathetic system heightened, and you can execute on the day with that. Remember that sympathetic nervous system is really important for driving the heart rate and and eliciting the ideal performance.
What are your final thoughts, Paul and Marjaana, about preparing for your big race? How do you want to wrap this up today?
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered it all, but it's it really all starts with the reduction actually in the training volume, like we spoke about, the maintenance of the training intensity, and now we've got all of this time on our hands. Darn. we have to control the mind. The most important muscle in the body becomes the one between the two ears, and that's all cool. And and it's but it's time to mentally rehearse and unleash all of that training and capacity that we've built over prior months. We need to be mentally rehearsing all of the equipment that we're going to be needing, and the intensity that we're going to perform at for the pacing. We know that that's important. And otherwise, don't forget to have fun with all of this too, right? Like this is there's a reason why we do all this, right? And it's all about what's coming, right? Like that. So make sure you enjoy yourself out there. The other thing I tell my athletes also is to be very grateful, because they're very special moments that you're very privileged to actually even have the capacity to be able to do that. So, and you're going to see all the competitors out on that course, and they're going to be looking at you. You're the ones, and they're going to be in admiration of you. So remember to be grateful for the fact that you have that ability to do what you're doing. And in doing that, you should be welcoming the fact that that's maybe a little bit uncomfortable, because it's still a blessing to be able to be uncomfortable out there. So you got to kind of switch that mindset around a little bit. And Marjaana, I think you relate to some of those comments, because I think you've probably heard those before, and you've used them.
Oh, I totally use them. This is a hard spot to end this after what you just said, but being grateful. Like a race day is a lot more mental than it's physical. Like you can harness so much power and joy if you just can like channel your nervousness and self-doubt into being in the moment and embracing the pain. And then when it's painful, smile, because smiling just makes it feel better. So big smiles on a race day, see somebody else there on the race day, look at the eyes and smile to them, and like pat on the back. You're doing great. Like I have so many moments when I've encouraged somebody else and they come back to me after finish line. Oh my God, thank you so much. Just because you talked to me, it just made it so much easier. And I'm like, I love that. Like I love feeding the energy from the crowds, and I also love giving back because it makes my suffering a little bit less. So yeah, I love racing. It's so much fun.
And I would say for me that, in that last week, your preparation is done. You've done everything that you can do, regardless of whether it was ideal or not ideal, it's done. And, that's what you've got. And, I love the idea of harnessing the power and joy, Marjaana. That was a great way of putting it. I think the last thing for me is checklists. Is just even as I've done hundreds and hundreds of races, and I still make checklists because I still forget things. And having a checklist prepares your mind, calms yourself down, and make sure you have everything when you're there. Thank you for exploring the path to peak performance and tapering today with us on the Athletes Compass podcast. When you subscribe to the podcast, you'll ensure you're always tuned in for our next journey into endurance, mindset, and performance. And when you share this episode with a friend, teammate, or coach, you'll be helping them discover new ways to level up their training and life. Take a moment now, subscribe, share, and let's keep navigating this endurance adventure together. For more information or to schedule a consultation with Paul, Marjaana, or me, check the links in the show notes. For Marjaana Rakai and Dr. Paul Laursen, I'm Paul Warloski, and this has been the Athletes Compass podcast. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Athletes Compass podcast, your North Star through the sometimes complicated world of training for your endurance sport. We appreciate your comments and training questions and your 5-star reviews. For a deeper dive into the science of endurance sports, listen to the Training Science podcast and check out the adaptive AI training platform Athletica.ai. Thanks for listening.